Hey there, you doers. Let's talk today about hearing loss. It's something that's very important that I think you should know about because it may impact you or might impact people that you are friends with or in your family. And it's important to understand what hearing loss is, how do you deal with it, and how do you try to make your hearing a little better. So with hearing loss, there can be mainly two types of hearing loss, and it could be a combination of these. But can be conductive hearing loss, which impacts your outer and middle ear, which may, for example, could be the bones within your middle ear are damaged or something like that, or it could just be a blockage or some other issue going on in those two sections. And then there's something called sensory neural hearing loss, which is basically the damage to your inner ear, which is what I have and which is what I'm going to mainly talk about. So how do you know you have hearing loss? Well, one, you could get a test done, but just on a day-to-day basis, if you start noticing that you can't hear people when they're talking to you, or you start missing words and asking people to repeat themselves more often, or someone's not looking at you directly, that could be a sign. When you're in noisy environments, if you're going out to dinner and suddenly you can't hear the person across the table, that could be a sign. And I think as we get older, we start noticing that more. When you go outside, if you can't hear the birds singing or the crickets chirping, that may be a sign, and that's on the higher frequency end. And maybe ask someone, do you hear any birds out? Or if you start noticing that you haven't heard noises that you may normally have heard. And that's one of the downsides of many about hearing loss. You can't even enjoy the environment as well, just the natural sounds of birds singing. You can also go to an audiologist who will conduct a thorough audiology exam and test different frequencies and other factors that can affect your hearing and give you an assessment of what frequencies are damaged. So when you go to the audiologist and you get your hearing test done, you may see something called an audiogram. And I'll try to put an audiogram up right here so you can see what it consists of. And basically, audiogram consists of, on the x-axis, the frequencies of which your hearing range, about 8,000 hertz. And on the y-axis, or the vertical axis, there's the loudness, in terms of how many decibels are needed until you can actually hear that frequency. So on this audiogram example, you can see that the hearing level is relatively normal in the lower frequency, but then drops off into the mid and higher frequencies. So looking at the audiogram, we can break it down into general areas of low frequency, let's say about 125 to 500 hertz, to a medium frequency about 500 to 2000 hertz, to a higher frequency of 2000 hertz, maybe to 4000 hertz, and an even highest frequency, or the very high frequency area of 4000 to 8000 plus hertz. And so if we take that and we look at the spoken word sounds that we hear, it's very interesting, because if you look at the lower frequencies, what you seem to hear are generally some consonants that you start hearing are like d sounds, and those start appearing sort of close to 500 hertz. But also you hear some vowels in that space as well, where you start hearing some E sounds and U sounds. And then as you move a little bit past the 500 hertz, a little bit into the lower, very low mid-range, you do hear some additional vowels around like the A sound, the I sound, and perhaps like an R sound, right? And that's a consonant. But you start hearing, so in the low to low mid-range sound, you pick up some consonants and then some vowels, the vowel sounds. And it's in these lower ranges, I think that's where sort of the volume is. Why this is important is that once you start moving away from these lower ranges into the mid ranges or higher mid ranges, you start hearing more consonants and sounds like the P sound, the P, and the H sound, the H, and the G sound, or G, right? And some of the other sounds of consonants like ch and sh start appearing in those higher higher frequencies. And that's important to know. And then as you move further into the higher frequencies, you start hearing that K or C sound, like K sound. And then even higher, you start hearing sounds like F, sh, S, like the F and S and the sh sound. So why is this important to know? So in the lower frequencies, you do hear some consonants, but that's where the vowels sort of live, right? Those lower to low mid frequency ranges. And you get some good volume there. But then as you move into the higher frequencies, that's when a lot of the key consonant sounds are appearing. And this is important because consonants are what allow you to distinguish words better. So it's important to understand where you're hearing these consonant sounds. And so if you have high frequency hearing loss, or someone you know has high frequency hearing loss, you may notice they can't distinguish certain words very well, like words like words like cat or pat, and it becomes difficult for people, or maybe yourself, to distinguish those words, even though you feel like you can hear. And especially when people speak softly, or they're at a distance from you, or they speak rapidly and start intertwining their words. So when you look at your audiogram, when you look at your audiogram, think about that when you see your results, that each of these ranges or these frequencies are where some of these sounds sort of reside, right? And if you have good hearing in one area, you may notice, yeah, I can hear those sounds, especially vowels, right? But then as you move into the higher frequencies, if you have high frequency hearing loss, you start losing that sound, those sounds, right? I can't hear them as well. And that is critical to hearing, but also when you speak to other people, that you pronounce, what I find is that people who enunciate their words, pronounce their words more distinctly, are much easier to understand, versus some people tend to join their words together where it's all like just one sound and there's no cadence, is what I call, and this is my own observation with someone who has hearing loss. If you can talk in a more distinct manner where the words and the syllables are very distinct from each other, it is helpful for someone with hearing loss, like myself, to hear that. Not only is speaking louder helpful, although sometimes that can actually be annoying because it sounds like you're mad at me, but talking more clearly, looking at me so I can see your facial expressions is much more helpful. It's not speaking too low. There are some people who are literally in front of me and would be speaking to me, and I couldn't understand anything they were saying. Where, for example, when I talk to my audiologist, I can understand her clearly. And I think it's because they've become accustomed to speaking in a very distinct manner. So keep that in mind when you're speaking. And even if you're speaking to people, I think, with normal hearing, I think speaking in a very distinct manner can actually may be helpful to them. Because when you have hearing loss, you actually, I believe, use more of your brain trying to comprehend what is going on. And so it's tiring, mentally tiring for someone with hearing loss to try to understand what someone's saying. And so using that premise, I bet it'd be easier for someone with good hearing to understand you if you make the effort to pronounce your words and to be more articulate and distinct in how you speak. Not to speak like a robot, but be conscious of how you're speaking and not blend your words together so that you can't understand, you can't distinguish the consonants and the vowels and things like that. So that's just something, my own learning, and hopefully that's helpful with you if you are dealing with people who have hearing loss or you have hearing loss yourself. So going back to the audiogram, on the audiogram, when you get an audiogram, the audiologist will check your hearing and will ask you if you hear certain sounds, and will go sort of randomly through sounds with different tones, like and you'll hear these different sounds, or you may not hear them. And then different frequencies, and then they'll turn them up. So some will be obvious where you can hear them. because they're so loud. And then gradually or mixed in, they'll play low loudness decibel sounds that you can't hear, right? And so on the graph, you'll see the lower loudness sounds up top, and then they'll gradually drop down. They'll gradually drop down into the even louder sounds. So if you have hearing loss, your graph will start dropping, will drop. So anywhere where you have hearing issues, any frequencies, it'll be lower down in the graph where the X or O is. There's X's and O's because the X stands for your left ear, and the O is representing your right ear. And on certain frequencies, it'll show you how many decibels is required to hear. So again, for me, on the low frequencies, I do okay, and then it drops off as I get into the mid and higher frequencies. And the worse, the higher decibels required for each frequency, the worse your hearing is. So you can have normal hearing, mild hearing loss, moderate hearing loss, severe hearing loss, and profound hearing loss. So that's the audiogram test. And what do they do with that? What the audiologist does with that is they take that and it goes into a computer now, and it on the graph, if you get a chance to see the software used, you'll see the amount they adjust the hearing aid, and they can fine tune it in so many intervals. And so you'll see a graph which may decline or increase depending on your hearing type. And so what that is doing is it's customizing the hearing loss for discrete frequencies, so that if you have only hearing loss at a certain range, it'll increase the magnification, I believe, of the sound for that hearing loss, but not the lower ones. So it's not just going to be raising the volume for everything like you do on your radio in your car or the volume on your TV set. It's raising the volume or loudness of certain frequencies so that you can hear everything consistently. So that's amazing, right? And there's other things that it can do. So for example, during hearing exam, like I told my audiologist, I'm getting on the right side, I just feel like this like deadness, right? It's like you're underwater, even when I have the hearing aid in. And she was able to take that and make an adjustment. And what's extra helpful was that the company that I have my hearing aids with had some preset, corrections for things that you describe. And so that helped the audiologist make sort of more gross adjustments, and she was able to fine tune them as needed. So that's fantastic, right? So now I don't hear that muffling sound. Literally, it felt like, even though I could hear, it just felt kind of like I just used the term flat or dead. And now that's gone. So let me talk about hearing aids in general. So there are different types of hearing aids. There are ones that you put, as I have, on your ear itself, and there's ones that go in your ear. And so you may have either one. You may have been talked to about either one. You may have relatives or friends that have different ones. So first of all, the ones that go in your ear, they have different types where you can't see at all, and then ones which protrude out and things like that. And I think what impacts that, and technology is changing, but generally I think the more you can see, the more space there is for circuitry in there. So increases, I guess, its strength. But I'm not that familiar with in-the-ear hearing aids, which are invisible. I've always worn what's called, and I call them behind the ear, but there's actually two terms. So I'll pull out mine. And so I still can hear it now. I can hear it through my left ear. But basically it consists of this main body, which has microphones on it, right, in the back. You can't really see them. And there's a toggle switch, and each one varies. And also there's a battery place. And a lot of hearing aids now are rechargeable. I like the battery ones because I don't want to have my hearing aids go out on me and then have to recharge them all of a sudden. But some people like the convenience of just recharging. You don't have to buy batteries anymore. But I prefer to use the batteries every couple of days. I just change them out. There's the green light comes on when I put in the battery, and it starts up, and then I would hear a sound in there. So these are external hearing aids, I'll just call them in general. In particular, these are called receiver in canal or receiver in the ear hearing aids. And what that means is that the speaker is inside this custom mold, right? and this is what goes in my ear. So it's behind the ear, but the receiver goes into my ear canal. So I believe they call that an RIC. There's another type of hearing aid called BTE, or behind the ear, even though this is behind the ear, that where it kind of looks like this, where the speaker's actually inside the main module, inside the main body, and there's a tube that goes in, and the sound then projects out the tube. So this is a very, I think, older version of a behind the ear. I bought these actually on eBay when I really didn't have real hearing aids. I think these are real hearing aids, but they're kind of an older model. And you also can't adjust them very much. So there's a knob on it, you can adjust like 3 channels or something. But these are in the ear, in canal hearing aids. And you'll see that, again, the speaker's inside here. Now what distinguishes, and you still can buy these, right? These are very much still in existence. And actually, Oticon makes, I believe, both types. And my understanding of the difference is that these ones, where the speakers contained in here can be used for more severe hearing loss. And I'm not sure that's exactly correct, because I've seen some models where these are rated as, the in-canal ones are rated as being able to handle more than the behind the ear. But my understanding is generally with the BTE type models, you can get more stuff in them. And because the speaker's right there as well, you can get more volume in them. So that's just my understanding. I prefer this because it's more discreet. The wire's more discreet, although generally you don't notice even if somebody's wearing these. So one thing I just want to show you as well is that I have this custom mold, and this is molded to my ear. And what that does is it seals off my ear, and there's a little hole in there, I think, to allow some sound to come in, some ambient noise to come in. But generally the benefit is that it's molded to my ear. Now what is the other option is, these are one of my earlier hearing aids. These are Starkeys, which were good at the time. However, my hearing got worse, and so I changed models. Not that Starkey's not a great brand as well. I just went to a different model as well, and I'm happy with them. So I was happy with Starkey at the time. These are, again, receiver and canal, because the speakers actually here as well. But I have these domes in here, and these don't seal your ear off, right? They're very flexible domes, and not molded to your ear. And then you have this retainer that then wraps in the inside of your ear, outer ear, and just helps keep it in. But this is the other type. So you can see this is what I had before, and this is what I have now. Okay. So they all are functional. They all have different types of technology approaches, but the intention is to match your hearing loss, customize it to you, and enable you to hear better. So Starkeys, you can look them up. They're a good brand. I personally have Oticon, and I've had 3 different models of Oticon since my journey with hearing aids. They've gotten better and better for me. Especially with adjustments. And I think one of the key things is finding a good audiologist who empathizes with you, and I think most of them do, and then they are able to adjust and make it work for you. And sometimes you might have to go back a number of times. If this is helpful to you, please leave a comment, and please like this video, and definitely please subscribe, because I'm here for you doers to help you get things done. And in case of hearing is important both to get things done yourself, and if you're dealing with someone who has hearing loss or hearing challenges, you can understand and work with them better. So let's keep talking about some other things. One other thing that affects your hearing is distance, right? And so if someone's farther away, their voice can be lost, either in a noise environment, sound frequencies can bounce off, affect each other. And just the distance may lower the volume, or if you're watching TV or something like that. And so sometimes you need to close the distance, right? And so there are other features, you want to call them, or appliances that you can get that help you with that. So first thing I want to show you is it's this TV adapter. And what this is you connect this to your TV, connect it to, there's some RC plugs in the back, and I think there may be other plugs you can get for it. But you connect this to your TV, and then this connects to your hearing aids, right? And then you can hear the TV directly into your ears and adjust the volume if your hearing aids. Oticon comes with a companion app, so I'm either able to adjust the volume that I'm hearing from the TV. So then I can hear more clearly, because coming directly to my ears, there's not that distance from the TV. And also there's something that a lot of hearing aids you can get with is an external microphone. And this is a Connect microphone that came with my Oticon, or I got in addition for my Oticon. And what I can use this for, one thing it can be used for is to pair with my phone, but my hearing aids connect directly to my phone anyways. There's a microphone for my phone if I want to make a call, but generally I hold my phone to my face if I'm making a phone call or nearby. So I don't use this to make phone calls, but you can. But more importantly, it can be used for when you're speaking with someone, perhaps at dinner. You give them this clip, you turn it on, and then when they're talking, the distance is merely from their mouth to this clip microphone, remote microphone, and it goes directly to my hearing aids, and I can hear them more clearly. And that may be helpful in a noisy environment. If someone's giving a speech, I could leave it up there. It has a certain distant range. I can leave it up there and then listen directly. Of course, you have to retrieve it afterwards. But that helps solve the problem with distance. So I want to talk about one other thing actually before we go. Is Bluetooth is wonderful. I can listen to my phone, my audiobooks using this. I subscribe to Audible, and so I love listening to my Audible books through this. And I also listen to a podcast regularly, so I listen to that, YouTube videos. When I'm talking on the phone, it comes through that. In fact, I can't even use my phone without these. If someone calls me on the phone, even I put it on speaker, it's so hard for me to understand what somebody's saying. And it's difficult, but these really are life-changing for me, the technology. And in addition, so when you go to a movie, sometimes you can't hear. And I've been to plays and musicals where sometimes I just literally give up because I can't understand what they're saying. I wish I had listened to it before, but I literally can't understand what they're saying. So things aren't funny, or I don't understand the theme, and you start blanking out, right? You just start turning off. And there are a lot of places that have a t-coil loop, and you can find out where these places are on the internet. If you search loop hearing, you can find out in your town, where they have loop hearing. And you also will see a sign that shows that apparently they're supposed to have a sign up that shows that they have loop hearing. And if you turn on your t-coil, it's called a t-coil, which a lot of hearing aids have, it'll link into that, and you'll be able to hear directly through there. So it's called t-coil, and you can ask your audiologist for that to activate it, because I believe it has to be activated, even though your hearing aid may have that capability. And then you can just turn it on when you need it. I believe they're coming up with a newer technology in the future, or currently out, but not all hearing aids have that. And the last thing is, when you go to, not related to hearing aids, but related to understanding, when you go to theaters, a lot of theaters have closed caption boxes. So just go to the where you get your tickets or customer service and ask if they have closed caption. And literally something you put into the drink tray, and it's like this little device, looks like something out of Star Trek in a way, and that Mr. Spock used to look into, and it'll show you the words. And I love that, because you are able to watch the movie and understand what's happening. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Please leave a comment about your story with your challenge with hearing. If you have any questions, stay safe. All right, you doers, let's get things done, and have a great day.